Howdy everybody. So today we're going to talk about power. and you're like, you think, well, that's not a good characteristic to have as a person. A lot of times people avoid power or authority, or you hear negative connotations like so-and-so's on a power trip. That too much power is not a good thing. And so you're conditioned to believe that you shouldn't ascribe to have power or hold power, and so you never had power. It's not a bad thing to achieve a certain level of power, and there's many different types of power. So let me give you some examples. My credit score is over 800. That's a very powerful tool when you're trying to run a small business. If you have a large down payment on a truck, you have a lot of purchasing power. If there's purchasing power, that's a good thing. I think there's some power that you would say that's not good, but there's other powers that you say, well, that's good. That's good. You got good credit. That's powerful. You got a good down payment. That's powerful. You have purchasing powerful. That's good. Obviously horsepower and your engine. That's a type of power. When you go in for a physical and you're in great shape and you're able to pass your DOT physical without any problems, that's powerful. So your health is a powerful tool in your business. If you're able to maintain your weight and stay healthy and not have diabetes and high blood pressure and obesity, health and fitness wise, that's very powerful. So power isn't something to be avoided or shunned upon. You need power. You absolutely need power. And if you can accumulate some power, then your capabilities will improve. See, when you go into a dealership and you want to buy a truck, your credit score is less than 700 and you only have $5,000 for a down payment, not very powerful. You have very little power in that negotiation. You're at a huge disadvantage. They'll probably get you a truck, but you're going to pay through the nose for it, and you're going to pay a high interest on that loan. So you go in from a position as powerful as you can get. The more power you have, the better. More purchasing power you have, the better. The more credit power you have, the better. If you can walk away from a bad deal, that's powerful. That's a very powerful negotiation. But when you have no leverage, you have no money, you have no credit, you're at a severe disadvantage. So one of the goals of being self-employed and small business owner is you want to acquire power. I have several credit cards, business credit cards, personal credit cards that I have, but I don't use. I have zero balance on all of them, but I have them if I ever wanted them, if I ever needed them. That's a powerful tool to have in your toolbox, is having credit cards available. I mean, I have a Navy Federal Business credit card with a $25,000 limit, zero balance. I have another American Express Plum card, business card. It's more like a charge card, but I can spend between $10,000 and $20,000 on that if I want to. I have personal credit cards that have $20,000 limits with zero balance. These are all powerful tools in my toolbox. Last time I took out a personal loan, it was through the Navy Federal Credit Union. It took me 10 minutes. Automatic approval, 30 grand. Didn't even have to wait. I mean, it was deposited into my checking account same day. That's powerful. It's very powerful. When you go in and you sit down with the finance officer at the dealership and you dangle that down payment in front of them and your good credit score, they'll get you a good credit rating. And they'll get you a good interest rate loan. You may have to negotiate for it, but you're in a position of power, because they have to bring their best offer to you because you're in the driver's seat, because you can go to any dealership, you can buy any truck. It's very powerful when you go on a dealer lot and you look at all the trucks they have for sale. You can essentially buy any of them if you're powerful enough. You have enough purchasing power. You can buy a brand new one. You can buy a used one. Most trucks on that lot you could probably buy. But you have to work towards development to get to that level. Your first few years as an owner-operator, not very powerful. I think it was like you come into this career field as a scrawny little bitch, whiny, complaining, everything. 10 years later, you're a fire-breathing dragon. Now you got money, you got credit, you got experience, and now you're powerful. That's where you want to be. And then going forward, you're just adding to it. You're just adding more and more financial purchasing power. You don't have to buy crappy trucks. You're at a point in your career development that you're probably more powerful than half the owner-operators out there. And that's a good achievement to acquire as an owner-operator. Power is not to be avoided. Power is something to be acquired. It can be acquired, and it can be used quite effectively. There's a state trooper. He did not like that guy at all. Central Transport got special attention today. Now, there's a type of power that you don't want to mess with. State troopers. I've had conversations with state troopers. They know I'm a submarine veteran. And they like talking to veterans. They like talking about, what your military experience was like. A lot of those guys are military veterans as well. You could, if the state trooper wants to have a conversation and it's not about trucking, I had one guy talk to me about college football for half an hour. You can joke around with these guys if they want to, but they have, they have enormous amount of power. Your purchasing power ain't going to help you out a whole lot there. But, sometimes I, have conversations with the city kiddies, and those guys are on power trips. They act like they're state troopers, but they're the township cop, And I used to think to myself, well, I don't say this, but I'm like, lawyers got to eat, so I mean, I've had some of them threaten to take my CDL away. I don't know why they say these crazy things. You know, they're like, yeah, I can take your CDO away. I'm like, I don't say a thing, you know, just let them run their mouth. I'm thinking to myself, lawyers got to eat, you know. I just get a lawyer. But that's kind of like a power trip. Now, walking is extraordinarily powerful. So there's another driver getting out of the truck, just out, getting some walking in. That's powerful. It's very powerful. So we'll wrap this up and say, as an owner, operator, small business owner, you want to try to become as powerful as you can, especially purchasing power and health and fitness. You know, don't try to avoid power. Look to acquire power, and that'll make everything much smoother. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.